Everybody, welcome to episode 33 of A Star is Born, and today we are featuring 6 producers from the theater industry, all of whom are alum of the 24-Hour Plays Nationals cohort from this past year, where I met them, and they are producing podcasts and short films. They're attempting to break Guinness World Records, and they are producing like playwriting initiatives. What is this? You people are crazy. They're creating trivia nights, which is just fundamentally good for the human soul. Now, I'm going to have you all introduce yourselves, and you're going to say your name, your pronouns, where you're from, and tell us one thing that a producer does that most people do not know about. It could be something that like you do. It could be something that you've picked up on from other people. So whoever wants to start.
My name is Ryan Duncan-Ayala, pronouns he, him, his. Born and raised in Laredo, Texas, currently in Syracuse, New York. And something that a producer does that not a lot of people know about is create the Zoom rooms. Yeah.
I'm Olivia Facini. Pronouns are she, her. I'm originally from New Jersey, that strange land. And a producer is in charge of a lot of weird things, but I think the most important is probably liaising between all the different teams, creatives and cast and budget and all of that. So that's exciting for me.
Yeah, most artists don't realize how much money they actually need to do things. And there's no like clear cut way that like to define producing. That's why like Ryan and I were talking about this the other day, because I've started to venture it into a little bit myself into producing like this stuff and other readings. And there's no like real, there are books and like there are guides, but like for the most part, it's sort of a free fall into like being the glue that keeps everything together. So I definitely think that you are a boss for being that liaison. Boss. Cool. Who's next?
My name is Narissa Agustin, pronouns she, her. And I think something that people don't realize is that the producer doesn't always get to be the nice guy to say, yes, you can do this. Sometimes you have to be the bad guy and say, we don't have the funds, or it's just not in the cards right now, which is not always the best job.
Yeah, it's good to be a parent, though, and to get that sort of, you have to develop that skill earlier on than later, especially in the arts, because like as I'm learning right now, I'm on the other side of like a huge sort of artistic questioning and reckoning in New York. And no, there's a lot of discussion about like where are we going to get the money to support what we want to do? And it's a hard question to answer, and it takes somebody like, I mean, you could say they're being a dick, but like they're ultimately being a pragmatist, because nothing happens without people laying out the resources first. So that's dope and very true. You go, Chloe.
Well, I'm Chloe. Chloe Brevik-Rich, she, her, hers. I am born and raised and currently based out of Minneapolis. Go Minnesota. Something that producers do that I think is not fully recognized is like keep the sanity. So they like keep the money and they're communicating with all these other people and have 10,000 plates in the air. And they end up having to be the person who has to answer all of the questions and like keep all of the mental breakdowns from happening.
Mine is related, so I'm going to jump off of that. My name is Kelsi Parsons. My pronouns are she, her. Similarly, like when you were like, what does a producer do that most people don't know? My immediate first thought was like, manages the people crying in the bathroom. And like, in the best way. That's like my favorite reckoning emotional moment of making work is like people reaching their wits' end, people like feeling like they're in over their heads and having to find a way to navigate our way out of that. Like that's the part that I love, that like gives me like happy juice. And I think too, like with that, knowing the smallest players, your ushers that come in day one, the people selling your tickets, the people printing your programs, all the way up to like funders and your directors, and like getting to know every part of that ecosystem. That's my favorite part for sure.
Yeah, a huge thing that I'm learning about right now is how any production or theater company stays afloat is its model for sustainability. You know, like how are we gonna keep everybody linked to one another? How are we gonna get the interns involved with like making sure that all of everything in the playbill is perfect, or like how are we gonna get them to make sure that our guest list and our donors know where to go and what to do, or like how are we doing with like development and all that. So I think everything is essentially linked in like keeping everybody sane. And yeah, it may seem stressful a lot all the time, but ultimately if you're not, I always am a believer, if you're not worried about like what you're doing generally, not in a way of like I'm not prepared, like that's a different situation altogether, but like if you don't have anxiety, I think anxiety is a sign of intelligence. I truly believe that, because like how else are you gonna be able to question, like, and you have to keep asking questions. I truly believe that. All right, Dylan, what who are you? What are your pronouns? Well,
I'm
tell us.
Dylan Tashjian. Excuse me. My pronouns are he, him, his. I was raised in Hickory, North Carolina. Something that I have found that a producer does that goes kind of unnoticed is the producer sets the values and the tone of the room immediately upon asking the first designer to join the show. Um, I think the producer, like you can tell what kind of show this is going to be by how the producer introduces the show to, you know, the cast, to the design team. Um, and I think that's something that oftentimes goes very unnoticed, you know.
Absolutely. Like you need to be able to set a precedent before like anybody has an opportunity to even speak a line of dialogue or give an actor direction, because like how else are you gonna like at least like make the landscape kind of even and all that with all the players. What I specifically like about like the stuff that you do, Dylan, what speaks out to me is that your organization, Hickory Playground, is it's specifically based in like community building in certain ways. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like it has the initiative for like public education, and it goes towards the goals of 2020, really, of like making accessibility on the frontier of theaters. So, you know, obviously, like I'm sure you all have opinions about that. Um, and we'll get to that because accessibility is paramount now. But talk to me about like making that decision to like use your community to build your skills, use where you are already to like go where you want to go.
Thank you for asking. Thank you for the kind words on my company. Yeah, so basically, I'll go a little roundabout here. So half of the company is like this education arm where we want to give money to arts departments in public education, because oftentimes we have a STEM education, which means there is no more STEAM. Especially during COVID, these arts departments are being reshaped and really just canceled. And that's not something we want to see. As you all know from 24-hour plays, there is a way to make art during this time. And the talent is all around us. You know, oftentimes we kind of get tunnel vision when we're discussing like talent. You know, we have this pool of 500 Broadway actors. We have this pool of like 100 movie stars. And we oftentimes forget about like, I don't know, the person that wrote the script for the movie that doesn't get the credit, but you also have all these people that like are talented. You have like this dime a dozen talent mentality, but you know, I want to tap into that, because I do believe that everyone, whether you consider yourself an artist or not, has creativity within them. I don't think you're really able to live without being a bit creative. Every day we put on clothes, which is an inherent form of art because that is being presented to the world. Some people might have better taste than others, but at the very end of the day, it's just an inherently creative process And I think that that's the prime example of everyone being an artist in their own way.
100%. And feel free, by the way, any of you to jump in whenever you want. I am not the boss of you. So just feel free to just chime in whenever and piggyback off like anything anybody says. But I definitely see that, you're starting to see more that like organizations like Broadway for All, for example, they're bridging that in a way. They're bridging accessibility with public education, and it's really at the forefront of all that. So yeah, I guess starting with Narissa, I'm curious, like, what made you want to become a producer?
Well, I'm a stage manager by trade, and that's what I studied in college. And I went to the University of Miami. This one's for Ryan. And I honestly never considered myself a producer until Madeline reached out to me and was like, you should apply to be a producer, because in college, Madeline and I put on one benefit concert for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and then I continued it for 2 more years. And she was like, that's a producer. You made that happen. You got the group together. Like, that's what a producer does. As much as you don't consider it, it is. So I didn't really think I would ever take this path, but it's interesting in this time to be able to swerve between producer and stage manager.
Yeah, and I think Chloe can speak to that as well, because Chloe is also a stage manager. And one of the questions I had for Chloe was that there is similarities between being a producer and being a stage manager, and that like everybody kind of comes to you for the answers, and you do have to have the answers to like everybody's questions. And you, like Kelsi said, similarly, you sometimes even have to deal with the crying in the bathroom. And I'm wondering what you've learned from being a stage manager that applies to being a producer as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it comes down to the organizational skills meeting the people skills, because there's so much crossover and so much need for that in the theater industry. And I believe it was Olivia or Kelsi, who might have been one of you, mentioned it's so cross-departmental. You are dealing not only as a producer specifically with like your donors and all of your artistic development and your directors and occasionally your actors. And I find that happens in stage managing too, is you're dealing with who are your lighting designers, and who are your designers in general? How do you communicate with your actors? How do you get your director's vision across? And so it's almost bringing that, it's rude to say small scale for stage managing, where you're just focused on the show, where producer kind of comes from that large scale of like, we're looking at the show as well as the theater, as well as this area, as well as that area. But those skills just translate the same way.
Yeah, I would say the scope of the lens for a stage manager is on the ground, and the producers is like sort of more like omnipresent in a way. It kind of has to be in so many ways. And hopefully you have like a team at least of people that you're keeping around you, so that you can keep all the plates spinning. But ultimately, the most successful people I've seen in our industry are people that have a lot of different things going on at the same time. And coincidentally, they're self-producing people. I think Issa Rae talks about like horizontal growth or something like that, where like the more stuff you have going on, the more things you can grow from. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about was how you've all been spending your time in quarantine, and like how have you been keeping sane? What's the self-care like? What do you need to stream? Like tell us all. Anybody?
For me, it's been connecting with people. I'm like a big advocate for this idea that like connection and like intimate connection, like whether that's friendship or whatever, is possible in the digital world. Like I don't think that just because we can't be with each other physically, that doesn't mean we can't connect with each other. Like I've never met any single person in this Zoom room in person, but like I still feel like I know all of y'all like that, you know. And I think the 24-hour plays taught us that. I run a dating show, and like people are out here like catching feelings for each other over Zoom, like over 35 minutes of Zoom. Like it's crazy. Like I
Wait, like any of us?
huh?
Like any of us? Not like these people, but like the cohort? No, you're not talking about the cohort, are you?
No. I'm talking about the dating show that I run, Meg.
Okay.
Well, maybe you would never know.
I
Maybe
mean,
you did.
We would literally never know, also.
yeah, being able to hop on Zoom calls with like people from all over the country, all over the world, has really kept me sane, personally.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And funny enough, the only person I have met is, or wait, no, Olivia, were you there that day? You weren't there that day, were you?
No, because I'm remote producing from Boston. So what a time.
Of course you are. That is so 2020 of you.
Yes.
So I guess that is, unless anybody else wants to answer about self-care.
I have friends. My best friends are, one lives in Seattle, one in DC, one in Georgia, one in France. So we have a weekly Zoom call. I haven't seen one of my best friends in like a year and a half, but we've been able to keep this weekly Zoom call going up throughout quarantine, which has been really great, just to reconnect with them each week and check in. And that's kept me sane. We have a movie club with each other, so we watch a different movie each week, and we've had some really great ones in there. We recently watched Wild Tales by Pedro Almodovar, which was wild, honestly. What else? Let's see. Oh, a Chinese movie called In the Mood for Love. Fantastic. It's part of a tetralogy, of which the fourth is coming out this year. So plug for that. Lots of great films. We just watched Mank.
Yo, how's Mank? Is Mank it?
I liked Mank. Yeah. I mean, as a filmy, someone who likes film and really appreciates Citizen Kane, I think it was interesting to see the perspective of the writer, because as Dylan said, they don't always get the credit, literally or figuratively, and this movie focuses on the writer of Citizen Kane, who almost didn't get credit for writing it. So it's an interesting story and artistically shot. So would recommend. Yeah.
Fincher though, right? Like he always comes home swinging.
Did you say tetralogy, as in like a 10 film series? Is that what that is?
So it's 4 films.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, tetra.
Such a good word, though.
4.
Yeah. Fancy, right?
Yeah, I would use it as like tetralogical. My concept is tetralogical. It requires
4-dimensional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't ask me what the 4th one is.
4D chess.
Yo, you know what else? I think Alvin and the Chipmunks is tetralogical, if memory serves me right.
Ooh.
So, bringing it full
Merry
circle.
Christmas.
Can we say Harry Potter is an octology? Does that exist?
I guess it kind of has to. Well, isn't it a septology? Because it's
if we're talking about the books, it would be heptology. If we're talking about the movies, it would be an octology. But I digress.
Word for 7 times. Hold on. It's septuple.
Septuple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Septuple or something.
That's a mouthful.
Oh wait. Okay, there's a noun for it. Harry Potter is a septuple heptuple. I swear to God, that's like what it's called. It sounds like a nursery rhyme, but the coefficient is 7 and the noun is septuple heptuple. That the result is a septuplet heptuplet. Okay. Moving on.
Sorry. My fault.
So then I also wanted to know what you all have been up to producing wise. Let's start with Narissa, because Narissa, this is crazy.
It is very crazy. So I'm working with Ryco Theatricals, which over this COVID period, they've been producing like an online book club and a comedy show and now we're trying to break a Guinness World Record for, let me get the wording correct here, the largest online video album of people singing the same song. So to break that record, we need 5,000 video submissions. And Ryco Theatricals chose the song From Now On from The Greatest Showman. And it's only 32 bars, so like anyone can submit. I think if you're under 18, you do have to sign a waiver, but since all of us are over 18, it's fine.
No, I'll ask my parents anyway.
Yeah, just in case, you know.
Yeah.
And we have all the sheet music for everyone, the track. So we've done most of the legwork. We just need people to participate so we can break that Guinness World Record. And the stream of it is going to raise money for the Actors Fund. So anytime it's streamed on Spotify or Apple Music, all of those donations are going straight to the Actors Fund.
That's amazing. I love that now we are, I think more than ever during this quarantine, I think actually primarily theater during this quarantine is mostly to raise money for the industry. It's like more philanthropic than it's ever been. And it sucks that it has to be out of necessity, but I guess that's kind of how the world works sometimes. But I will say that like what Ryan and Olivia and Narissa are saying about like creating work from like all around the world and connecting people. It's funny because like at the beginning of this podcast, some of the stuff we were talking about was like, what are people going to be like at the end of this? And like one of my friends was like, I think they're all going to be like European. Like if somebody's like, how are you doing? It's going to be like, don't ask me how I'm doing. Fuck you. How are you doing? And like, I feel like that is not exactly what is going on, because as quarantine has gone on, people have like connected through like social media in like so many different ways. And that's like definitely speaking towards like how we met each other at the 24-hour plays. And like Olivia has like produced this incredible short film that like I actually have like a starring role in. I'm just kidding. You've seen my feet. But it's great. It is. So talk to us about Two Black.
I'd love to. So Two Black is a very nationals heavy collaboration. It's written by Millie Boden and directed by Maggie Lee and produced by yours truly. We have nationals actors, including Keith, our delightful host here. And the concept is twofold. Millie wanted to bring some of her poetry to the screen, so she adapted poetry to a screenplay format. And that really comes through in the sort of fragmentary and meandering way that the action plays out, as well as the voiceovers. And the central theme is the defining and undefining what the Black experience means today, especially in light of the events that have happened in the last year, what it means to be Black or too Black, and how the characters wrestle with how they define themselves and are defined by others. It's very powerful. Yeah, so right now we have finished filming and we are working in post-production to put all of the film together and then eventually submit it to different festivals around the country.
As you should, man, because so much of the work I did that day was like, it was a lot of like very specific work to like create imagery and like spark imagery for like the actors that were obviously like people of color and specifically like Black artists too, that we have the pleasure of collaborating with, like Malik Childs, Portland Thomas, who are just like wonderful people. And I can't tell you the catharsis, and you all will experience it when you meet these people in person. All of us, like there is nothing more surreal than like getting to see somebody who is on a computer screen and like actually meeting them and collaborating with them in the way that like you are comfortable with and adapted to. And I think the first time I got to experience that was with Lisa Nasso and Britt Burke, who's like a director from the Cohort. And we like participated in this like Romeo and Juliet based like charity thing where we at one time on sundown, everybody who wanted to participate could do the balcony scene, and they got submissions from like Turkey and Milan and North Carolina and like literally all over the world, and even Long Island. We literally did the balcony scene in a goddamn gazebo, and as I passed the gazebo, I was like, wait, I've been here before. And I realized like I went to a concert and was really high, like almost 5 years to the day where we did that balcony scene, and it's like, whoa,
What?
iconic.
One
Wild.
conversation we had towards the end of the 24-hour process was about like meeting each other in person for the first time and like not knowing how tall any of us were and like not being able to and like just like gauging each other's heights by how their like torso up looked on Zoom.
Oh my god!
And I'm never gonna forgive you for thinking I was 5'2".
I genuinely
Every day, someone dared think.
Now I can't unsee it. Now I see your torso and I'm like, holy shit, she's tall. Like
I'm a large human being.
No one has ever thought I was tall, so
Get out of here!
Kelsi and I got to meet in person and can confirm Kelsi is tall.
Tall person. It's
No
true.
way! How
Yeah.
tall?
I'm like 5'10".
Wow.
Pretty tall.
So am I. That is so weird. And I'll tell you why it's especially weird, because only 5 minutes before you came on, my producer, I told her like, my chair has been like down here while I've been doing most of my podcast episodes since April. And I only just realized 10 minutes ago that I can elevate this wheelie chair. And my producer's just like, yeah, I've always wondered, like, you could be really, really short, but like, I wouldn't know. And she was like, you're probably like 5'2". And I'm like, no, I am 5'10". So we're the same height, Kelsi. Don't, and you can take that to the bank.
I can, and I will post Corona.
there we go.
Oh yeah. You're in New York, right?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not currently. I
Nice.
came home to Culver City, California for the holidays. I'll be here through the new year. But usually, yes, I'm in Ridgewood, Queens. Best neighborhood on earth.
I fucking love Ridgewood, and I'll tell you why. Because I have gone there multiple times and I've been able to find parking so reasonably fast. You could literally, the parking in front of bodegas in Ridgewood is exponential. It is superb.
I don't drive, so I don't know that, but I support that.
Validate that.
It's been a great quarantine neighborhood for sure.
It totally has.
Yeah.
Dylan, you're making a podcast, aren't you? You're producing a podcast right now. Tell us about it.
Yeah, my company Hickory Playground is producing a podcast called The Best Paper I Ever Wrote, which stars well, our host is Jess Fisher. She is like a TikTok icon, in my opinion, at least. I was actually on the first episode, and I discussed the best paper I ever wrote in college, but it doesn't have to be from college. There's some PhDs, there's some middle school essays that we're getting. It's pretty fun. You guys should listen. But I discussed Kim Kardashian and the influence that Kim Kardashian had on culture, particularly through the lens of Instagram, and how, we can quantify the impact that keeping up with the Kardashians had on this culture. And the episode is called Dylan Kept Up with the Kardashians, because why not?
And the cover art you guys make for each episode, there's one episode. The cover art you've made so far is like Wonderful.
Our goal is to kind of like employ, we have a very small budget, but be able to pay as many artists as we can throughout all the disciplines. So we get some visual artists to come and draw things. We have a visual artist actually on our team that does most of our design work, and she's really excellent. Morgan Honeycutt Art, if anyone is looking for anything.
First of all, thank you for acknowledging that. The podcast game is really hard. The podcast game is even harder when you are creating a video podcast and you choose to edit it. It is a choice, and it's a choice I've stuck to. And you know, when Ryan and Cara came on to help me produce, there was a clear choice. I could have just gone to just doing audio, but something in me is just convinced that like there is something empathetic and like something very real about seeing people converse and at least giving them that option, at least giving them the opportunity to see people talk. And honestly, that's like how I got into like podcasts myself. Like I think one of my worst character traits is that I love Joe Rogan, and it is just like, and I have to like, I gotta come out. Like it's one of, and I acknowledged it's not a great trait about me. There are worse traits for sure that you could have, but he is fundamentally, the way he's conducted his business is unparalleled. He owned everything he's created. He's never stopped doing what he wanted to do, as horrible as it was. And those early episodes are dog shit. I don't doubt, like, if I keep doing this for like 10 years like he has, that I'm gonna look back. I couldn't even possibly look back at what I'm saying right now, but I will. I won't. But I basically
You won't take it personally.
No, I can't, because ultimately, like, and you could say this about any piece of theater made before the 2000s. Like, the one criticism you could give to like the theater is that everything is white. There's a sea of whiteness. If you went to Playwrights Horizons in 2003, you were going to see like 4 white people talking about their relationships. And there was nothing that like they could do to, you can't change that fact. It's already happened. So I can't change like what I don't know, but all I can do is like keep moving forward. And that ideology made him $100 million. So like, I don't question that like the man knows one thing or another.
The first of our podcast recommendations is the Joe Rogan Experience. So that's what you get for only having one podcast episode up.
First of all, he is now their brand essentially for podcasts. Like, they have completely bought him, and now his YouTube community is just like erased. There was like a bunch of people like commenting and like making their own timestamps, and all that stuff is gone. And basically, he is now like doing ads at the beginning of everything, and it's hilarious because it's like, that's what you get when you like make that fucking commitment to these people. Like, you're gonna look like a douche a little bit at the beginning of your episodes, talking about razor blades and stamps.com, and like, one day hopefully I will too, and that's fine, because like it's how he makes his living. Kelsi and Dylan, let's talk about your beautiful trivia nights, that the one you just had, and the prospective future for it. Kelsi, I'll throw it to you.
One of my quarantine hobbies, I suppose, is the group of friends that I used to do, bar trivia with. We were like, we don't want to stop playing trivia, and what a great way to like get and see everybody every week. Let's make our own trivia game. So every week, for the most part, since March, we've played online trivia. And by the time we did 24-hour plays, I'd basically become an expert on how to make a trivia board. So I hosted a trivia night for us that way as a part of our fun committee. And now Ryan and I are teaming up to hopefully do more in support of his Frontera series. Yeah, it's just a fun way to like get people together and like have an activity. I
It
find
is.
that like you know, I think in quarantine I've definitely been someone that like falls into just like turning on TV and not really paying attention and not actually engaging, but having like an intentional hour and a half, 2 hours where I'm like focused and thinking and having conversation and making jokes, like that's a really helpful routine that I'm excited to keep sharing with new friends.
It's a secret. It's therapy is what it comes down to.
Oh
Like
no.
that it's all part of that self-care. And I don't know if I've even talked about these people yet, but since April, I've been part of this group of 8 people from Long Island. They're the only redeeming thing about the cesspit. And they basically, we've been playing Evil Apples, which is like Cards Against Humanity, but for that. And now Among Us and like Quiplash. And it's just these 8, like, we're all like, we're like a little douchey, but like not even in like a really like problematic way, because if we did, like, we would be able to tell. And like, we have our WhatsApp and like and we say crazy things. We do a lot of wild cards for Evil Apples. Like we can write our own cards, and boy do we. But yeah, it's as a cluster of people, like we've become vulnerable with each other in ways that we never thought. We were just like, there's a lot of times where they're just like, I just want to say that, like, I do appreciate you guys. And we're all like, we're and it's just like we're like sort of getting through this together, and it's beautiful. I love it. And if for some reason you people are watching this, like, I don't know, do something else. But like, they're great. They're wonderful people, and it's definitely a great way to pass the time in this obviously horrible time. The other thing I also wanted to talk about, because I think I've covered everything. Does anybody have anything else to promote?
I've been trying to like find a way to express myself artistically, because oh my god, I've tried a desk job. I'm like currently nannying, and I'm like, this is fun but not my thing. So I've been trying to figure out how to express myself artistically. 24 hours was a fantastic way to do that. But some of my college friends and I, because I graduated with a stage and screen arts degree, which was twice as much work for half the amount of jobs. But we decided early into quarantine that we all needed an outlet. We need something to do. So we have created a production company called Do Not Air. And for the last few months, about twice a month, we have been able to get like the smallest group together to create short, like, comedic sketches. And we're currently on hiatus to edit all of those. And we're expecting to have a show ready and producible, and hey, if anyone wants to air us, sometime this summer. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. I can't express to you like how much having an outlet and like trying something new with people you trust is like, it really is a test during this time, right? Like how much can I trust, It's what they say when you're playing Among Us and they're like, I'm not the imposter. They just say trust. And it's very, very dark. It's very strange, but like, yes, trust. And I think it speaks to like how vulnerable we can really be with each other, and how open we can be to giving each other opportunities to like expand each other's ideas and like really push each other and motivate each other. I think that's wonderful. Yeah, and one of the other things I wanted to talk about with all of you is like right now obviously our industry is going through a reckoning. This is some shit I've been saying for months, like since like June and even before June. The work that's been coming out of theater has shown that like our world is not what the patrons thought it looked like, and for so much better, honestly, because like we're seeing the industry standard group, which is like basically changing. It's going to change the way that we produce. It's going to change who gets ownership over those stories, and it's going to dismantle, as Dylan will probably be giddy to hear, the capitalist model of like producing that commercial producers have come to just sort of accept. So I'm curious what any of your thoughts are about this new model, and what you're excited about.
100% what I'm excited for, coming out January 1st for 3 days of streaming.
Stop it. You're beating me to it.
Our Lord, our Savior, our TikTok artistry, Ratatouille the musical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I think is a fantastic joke and is hilarious, but also like that underlying, like that need for creativity and this collaboration, which is what theater is all about. And the idea that it's created by like people our age. It is created by the masses for the masses. And I'm interested to see how that will go moving forward, in that it was picked up by Playbill and by a couple other people to produce this for Actors Aid, for the Actors Fund. Yeah. And how are they going to produce something that was created by 10,000 people?
So quite the contrarian in me, and the thing that will get me canceled forever, and I'm very happy about it. I think this is a horrible nightmare that we're living in. This is a dystopian world that a rat gets more credit than creators of color on Broadway. I'm just gonna say it,
dude. It is kind of miraculous, right? Because you see, one week Jeremy O'Harris is like, I'm just saying, like, there's no way in hell Disney is gonna let you people put a musical together. 1 week later, he's like, I'm actually proud to announce I'm the executive producer of Ratatouille the musical.
Yeah, his lead producer from Slave Play is the lead producer for Ratatouille.
Yeah, Greg Noble, right?
Yeah, yep.
Youngest producer on Broadway.
I'm just gonna say, I'm very excited at the prospect of like, this is like a crowdsourced thing that happened, which is really cool and fun. I think that leads to like some downfalls in some of the writing, but that's a personal preference. But I will say, we'll just say it, Disney's gonna ruin it, you know?
Oh, for sure.
And they're gonna exploit those kids. They're gonna exploit the hell out of them. They're gonna give them a couple $1,000s that'll make them really happy because it's the most money they've ever seen in their life, and then they will own none of it.
The thing I will piggyback off of that is Disney ruins everything. Yes. But the idea, it's so convenient that it's Ratatouille, where the whole tagline is like, anyone can cook. This idea like, oh, anyone can create a Broadway musical, so why are we paying all these rich white guys to make these $1 million plays when it could be like an array of people? It can be TikTokers. Anyone can make a Broadway musical.
Anyone can make a Broadway musical if you have the funding support from the white producers, and they give you one of the 43 theaters on Broadway. So like, that's why anyone can write a Broadway musical, but they won't give one of the 43 theaters to like Soft Power or, you know, some really amazing arts of color. But anyways, Kelsi, you were gonna say something.
I was gonna say, like, I think and I don't know, so I am a huge fan of like digital media, online media, new media. I think that in terms of like experimentation and like the new frontier, like that's where that exists. And I get nervous, I think, in the like Zoom theater conversation about like not letting these things shoehorning these new projects that are coming out of this quarantine space into this is a theater project or this is a film project, because those are convenient boxes that already exist. I mean, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not that engaged in this Ratatouille conversation. But to me, that sounds like a third thing that like we need to let that be the third thing. That is where innovation exists. That's where new, like a new industry, even, you know, down with capitalism, but like more industry is needed. So like that could be an industry. There's potential for money to exist there. We should let those kids exist in that third space rather than shoehorn them into a Broadway theater, because Broadway doesn't want them. You know, Broadway wants to put Jersey Boys back on Broadway and Mean Girls back on Broadway, and that's
Dustin Hoffman back in our town.
Yeah, like that's what we're gonna do. And we're happy that they're perfectly happy to do that. And that's sort of like, I feel like, I don't know. I want kids on the internet to be okay.
I think that's a bigger conversation, actually, because I think, you know, your question was like, how are we excited to see like commercial theater be reshaped? And I'm like, you know, maybe the eternal pessimist in me is like, you can't reshape like an inherently capitalistic and inherently exploitative structure. You need to create something new. And so as much as I love this idea that we're trying to make it more equitable and ethical, I don't know how successful that can be. So I'm with Kelsi on this one. Like, let there be new things. Like, we don't have to shove, you know, a square peg in a round hole, because we can just make a square hole.
Well, I think that's where nonprofit theater comes in, because we've been having this conversation about commercial theater, but really there is young person exploitation in nonprofit theater as well. As someone who has done unpaid internships, like that is a privilege that I was able to have another job to support myself while I was doing those unpaid internships, and to be able to move to the city just start that up. A lot of people don't have that freedom or that capacity. So the nonprofit theater space, off Broadway, have more of a moral responsibility to make sure that the young people coming into this field are paid and are recognized for their work, because it is so hard to start a theater career right now. And even as an established actor or theater person, there are so few people who can support themselves as just artists. They always have to have a side gig of teaching or of working in a different field, a day job. And that's what saddens me. So I think while we'll never be like Europe in terms of its socialist system or approach to the arts, I am a huge proponent of more funding, federal funding and state funding going to the arts, and grants being available for those nonprofit theaters to then be able to support those young artists, and to give them not only financial support, but also development support and mentorship in a way that makes a career in theater seem possible. Because I've been told so many times theater is hard. You have to wait 10 years before you even are established, if you make it that far. And that's really discouraging for people to hear. And we're in our early stages now, but it would be so great to be able to see a pipeline or a pathway, especially as producers, since there are so few resources for us out there, for us to be able to follow some path, some trajectory toward support and stability, so that we can help others make their art.
Well, that is what is so refreshing about the industry standard group, is that what they're basically going to be doing is they're going to be at the forefront of commercially dismantling the hierarchy. And we're going to actually find out the answer to Ryan's question, because I empathize with your pessimism. I do. But I think there's still the opportunity, now that the people at the top are in, you know, quarantine is purgatory. And that is kind of that is, you know, I'm not going to say it is not a good thing. You know, the fact that we are using this word quarantine I think, it's questionable to like sit the whole culture of like, yay, quarantine. No, this isn't good. This isn't, it never needed to be here. It's never great. But we are in that purgatory, and the inequities that we've exposed this year and are growing and exposing are only going to get disrupted more. We have 6 more months until and I've heard this, I said this on the last podcast, and I'm going to reiterate it because I don't know if you guys know this. I have heard that the Tonys are going to be next summer to sort of inaugurate the season. I don't know if you guys have heard that as well, but basically that makes a lot of sense, because that sort of, the Tonys have always been a commercial for theater, so it would only make sense that they sort of reopen the franchise and are essentially the McDonald's is just opening its doors again. So yeah, we have until the Tonys basically to disrupt the hierarchy, and then whatever is left again is what we have. It kind of reminds me of what the past 4 years have been. We've had 4 years to sort of assemble and really confirm. I'm like, so we all know this was a mistake, right? It's like an Among Us, another Among Us analogy. When you choose the wrong imposter and and they're like, okay, if it's not them, it's me. And then you realize it's not that person. So you hit the emergency button and you're like, okay, it's this person. This is the problem. And we've had 4 years to like really confirm with the whole country. It's like, so we know this is horrible, right? Like, we know this is like the worst shit ever. And like, you had your chance to like see it through. This was nothing. So like, I'm glad, like, it shows that democracy works in some way, which I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that we still live in a country where like, and the electoral college is on Monday, so we'll see. But I'm like pretty certain that at this point, like, we have our country back, and I'm looking forward to seeing like CNN be just like boring again. It's really something I'm looking forward to. Just, like, bullshit and not real. But yeah.
I humbly disagree a bit, but I'm going to save the rant. I think that, like, as everyone's like said here, I'm not exactly a huge fan of the way our government does things. As producers, as young producers, we have to look at what skills we have in abundance. And our biggest skills are we believe, and then we organize. So if we use those skills to organize people, enough people to make valuable change, which is directly within our sphere of talent, we can create change. And that might be on the stage, but usually it's going to be off the stage, because I think we need a major change off the stage before we can make a major change on the stage. And going back, like circumventing the conversation, downtown New York City makes a lot of great and accessible art. Regional theaters around the country make a lot of great and ethical art. Some are better than others. I'm sure we've all heard some downtown theaters are less ethical than others. But we as producers have this opportunity to change it, because we're technically, like, at the end of the day, we're running this, I use this analogy very loosely. We're running a business when we do a show. And as I said before, we're setting the tone of how that business runs. Is it going to be equitable for our actors? Is it going to be representative? And is it going to be accessible to an audience? And I think that's something that we can look again on the stage and also off the stage.
As well, accessible, and then also sustainable. That we do this one business once on one show, but we have to make sure that the next show we do, that is also the same. That the things that we're learning, we're growing, we're making last. Like, I'm not interested in being in theater for the next 5 years only. I want to do this forever. I'm trying to create a long career. And I think that's what a lot of us have in common, is like, we're aware that we're at the beginning now, but we're playing the long game. Like, we're trying to get to the end of this road with a system that works and is consistent and is accessible and is sustainable. And like, that's the part that I think the part that I'm trying to do my homework on now is like, what are the systems I can do in this COVID moment to make a sustainable practice of, even if it's just like getting friends together on a Zoom to read a stupid play, like that needs to be a sustainable thing that I can repeat, so that then when it grows a little bit more and it's got a little bit more money and it's got more people and whatever, there's that like foundation that makes it really, really last for a long time. That's, for me, that's like the third part that I'm trying to do my homework on.
Yeah, and I think with that is like creating ethical precedents, like trying to make sure that, you know, if you do something one time, you need to keep that energy. So like with the most recent workshop production that we did at RDA Producing, we set the precedent of paying people to audition, of like offering honorariums to people auditioning because they put in time and effort. And so making sure to keep that precedent going and to like expand that to other like sectors of the field, I think is important.
And when you talk about sustainability, Kelsi, I completely agree, and I hear that. And the only thing that like the people who are really in charge of that and, you know, who champion that idea, they need to just make sure that it's sustainability for the community of artists and not the institution, because there is very, very like insidious ways that, you know, I've seen fairly recently go on Vulture, and you're gonna see that like these people can speak up and you could be like, we got to pay our actors, we got to have like artists on our board of directors, we got to do all these things, we got to make our community, we got to make our institution more sustainable. And it's that very specific nuance that can jeopardize the community of people that of young artists that are trying to make new work and engage. So just be careful for like sneaky motherfuckers. That's why like it's important to also find very huge ways to disrupt white supremacy, but also very sneaky ways too. Because if you are just as sneaky in your dismantling, then they're gonna run into trouble later when they try to oppress you. Now, I know we are at time just about, so let me just do a big promotion of all of your work. Now, you could catch Dylan Tashjian's podcast that he's producing, Best Paper I Ever Wrote, hosted by Jess Fisher, and his episode on the Kardashians. It's on Spotify and everywhere podcasts are available, right? You could catch Chloe Brevik-Rich's Do Not Air, which she is a part of. That is going to come to somewhere beautiful very soon. And I'm excited to see what that becomes. And the beautiful and talented Kelsi Parsons, you're going to see her continue to create more trivia nights maybe and work on the sustainability of her incredible reading group. And she's just generally incredible, more or less, give or take. And you're gonna catch the like supreme Narissa Agustin attempting to break the Guinness World Record title for largest online video album of people singing the same song. And I'm excited to see that shit. I'm sending my tape tomorrow. I hope I book it. So the last person you're going to want to look out for, a person who, according to her bio, specializes in taking vague ideas from FaceTime conversations, just taking that out of context. She is producing, Olivia Facini, To Black, the upcoming short film written by Millie Boden and directed by Margaret Lee and featuring a bunch of our cohort members. And of course, my producer, Ryan Duncan-Ayala, my sugar daddy. You can catch him continuing to create incredible work with RDA Producing and the Frontera Playwright Initiative. And just stay tuned for that, because it's an incredible group of people we got here. This was such a wonderful conversation, you guys. I love seeing you all. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Keith.